Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and I am so happy to have you here. Really, I am, and you know I am every week. And this show is going to be so much fun. I know it. I've been talking to my guest for the last 20 minutes, and I keep looking at my watch. Is it time yet? Because I don't want to talk to her without you. So we're going to say hi to her in just a second. But before we do, hi, I'm Nan.
Hello, Marilyn. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And you?
I'm just fine.
Did you
It's
have a
kind of
nice week?
chilly.
It
It
is a
was a
little
nice
chilly.
weekend,
It's
but
a
it's
shock to
getting.
your system when you
Well,
go
I
from like
know.
70 something
I
to
know.
like 30
I know.
something. Welcome to North Carolina, my friends. That's how it is here. That's how we roll. So you good?
I, I'm good, but I'm ready for some of that global warming.
I gotcha. I gotcha. All right. So here we go. I want you to know that anytime during the show, you can call in anytime. You can ask questions. You can comment. You can do whatever you want. And that number is 919-518-9773. And of course, if you're in somewhere in the world and you don't want to call us on 919, you can certainly come in on our Skype voice, and that would be Computers 2K Voice. Computers, that's plural, the number 2K Voice. And we have a chat. So please feel free anytime to put your name right near our video and join us there. You can ask questions, you can comment, you can do whatever you like. And so today we're going to welcome Kathy Bushnell to our show. I'm so happy to have you, Kathy. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here. It's an honor.
Well, thank you so much. And Kathy's got lots to share with us. She is a rock pioneer. One of the first or the first female rock pioneer. You tell me.
Okay, I was a half of the first female rock duo in Great Britain.
In Great Britain. So tell us about you and your experience, because we got a lot to share, right? Go for it.
Okay. Well, I think it would be good for me to maybe start with the fact of our lineup. Okay, it was my friend Janet and me and I, and we had a duo, and our lineup was two Fender Telecaster electric guitars, and we also had a Rickenbacker electric guitar. We played keyboards and flute and harmonica, and we wrote only original
And
songs.
what year is this?
Well, it started we started touring in '69. We played a couple of gigs, sort of practice gigs in '68, but '69 through the end of '71.
So how did you get started?
Well, I'd like to back up if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
There were a lot of synchronicities in the way that Janet and I met, first of all, but we went over together on a college summer trip. We met in college in our freshman year, and we were friends. And we were in Scandinavia that summer, and we met a musician by chance. Haha. And he was Martin Stone of the Savoy Brown Blues Band. And he invited us to stay at his communal flat in London. So we ended up staying with him most of the rest of the summer.
And so before we go on, is this first picture we have, is that of you and your friend?
Yes,
there we
I'm
go.
on the left, obviously, and Janet is on the right. And that's actually a publicity picture taken in, I believe it was Hyde Park. And look like I'm laughing like a hyena, but our manager had said a really funny joke, and so he caught me laughing. So we left it.
So there was no other female rock groups up to this point?
Well, remember we're talking about Great Britain.
Oh, Great Britain.
Yes.
Okay.
So there was a different scene in the U.S.
Okay.
And so in Great Britain, we were definitely the first female rock duo. There was a DJ there, very famous, John Peel, and he did confirm to us that we were the first female rock duo in Great Britain. So we were pioneer chick rockers.
Wow. What was that like?
It was very exciting, a mix of intensity and struggles and determination. We ran into some casting couch type of scenarios, which is why you don't know us as a recording artist. things like that. But we stood our ground, and we were very determined not to sell out and to, be confident in ourselves.
So what do you mean that we don't know you as, what do you mean by that?
Well, there are many, British artists and musicians whose albums have come over across to the United States, and you know them. And we have had a situation where we were asked to record 2 different albums, and those both fell through, and partly because we refused to compromise ourselves.
What, are you talking about sexually?
Yes.
Ah.
Casting couch scenario.
Is that what you mean by that?
Absolutely. And that was something that we can't prove, but it was very, very unsettling and difficult decision. But we made it, and we actually walked out on the record company.
Wow.
Because we did not want to give any sexual favors.
So walking out of the record company, were you able to walk back into another record company, or were you blacklisted?
Perfect word. Yes, we were blacklisted. The next record company we went to said, well, we already heard that you were turned down by the first record company. And we said, no, we weren't turned down by them. We turned down the first one.
And then what happened?
Then we got another manager because, we needed somebody else. And then he was asking us to wear very slinky dresses and low cut, gold lame types of dresses, and hyped us even more, tried to, but we just didn't want to do that. So
did you basically then give up that kind of a career?
Absolutely nothing.
You didn't give it up?
No.
So what happened?
Well, what happened was, and people were trying, record companies, they were trying to get us to become a 4 or 5 piece band.
Because sleeky clothes doesn't remind me of like those days, and it would be more like maybe Motownish, but not necessarily hippie rocky.
Well, that's one reason we felt that it was more of the girl group kind of thing.
Okay.
When we first went into the studio with our first manager, and this happened to us too, we went to the studio thinking we were going to record my duo was named Emily Muff, and we were going to record an Emily Muff number. So we get to the studio with our Fender Telecaster guitars in hand, and everyone's looking at us like, why did you bring those? So it turned out that they had written a song for us without telling us, called My Way, which is like a Frank Sinatra title. So we tried to be decent and tried to record, but it just didn't feel like an Emily Muff representation. And so that fell apart too. So.
And then what?
Well, then we went to that next manager with the gold lame, and he required that we become a 4 or 5 piece band. He wanted us to have a rhythm section. And Janet, my friend, and I just really loved how we were as a duo. And we had been touring for quite a while. The first band that group that we opened for was Family. They were very, very big in Britain. And they also toured with Yes. So Emily Muff, my duo, used to open shows and concerts for 2,000 people plus all around Great Britain for, famous bands.
So would you consider the fact that you were known in Britain? I mean, were you a group that was known? Like, would people want to come and see you? Did they know that they wanted to come and see you?
Yes, absolutely. And we toured a lot, and because Family had who we had opened the shows for the most were very, very popular. They sold out concert halls throughout Great Britain. I mean, it was just sold out show night after night after night on the road. So thousands of people saw our duo. And even nowadays, I get people stopping me and saying, oh, they're mostly British, but they'll say, oh, I saw you when you were in the duo and you were touring, right? That kind of thing. So, I went to see Yes, about 15 years ago or whatever, and I went to the backstage entrance, and I was prepared to explain my story. And some guy came up to me and he said, "Emily Muff, how are you, love?" So, and, we were very known in Britain.
So I've got lots and lots of questions, but I certainly want to open it up to the floor. So anybody out there that wants to call in, please feel free to do that. I know that Kathy has some friends out there. I know her well. So if you want to call in, please do 919-518-9773 or computers, again, plural, 2K Voice on Skype. And then you are more than welcome to join us in our chat. And my name is Marilyn Shannon, and I'm happy to be here. So keep going. Keep telling us what happened. So what was the next, and then the next, and then the next?
Well, after that, that's kind of skipping ahead a bit.
Okay.
But after that, we that was our breaking free moment. And my friend Janet and I decided that we were going to go back to being a duo. We had tried to add a couple of other people as per our manager's request, the second manager, and it just didn't work out. And we really loved this sound as a duo. So the person who was with us, he said, I had to break the news to him, and he said, "That's okay. I love being part of, a trio with you for a little while, but don't fiddle around anymore with anyone else. I prefer you as a duo." And soon after we stopped with those two managers, we had several requests. It was, maybe 2 weeks later, Jeff Dexter, who's a wonderful friend and entrepreneur at the time, and DJ, huge, probably the most popular DJ, or second most popular in Britain, and he invited Emily Muff to open for the trio America, Horse with No Name. We opened for them at the Roundhouse venue as a duo, and that was our breaking free moment, one of them. And we sounded just perfect for us, and Janet and I had a wonderful connection with each other. Wonderful.
So that moment, and you broke free, what did you break free into at that point? Where did that moment, that freedom moment, take you?
We really had to do with standing our ground as a duo, because we knew that that's how we sounded the best, and that was where our passion was and our heart was, and it was reflected in shows from then on. So,
and you kept on performing after that?
Yes, we did, and we ended up touring and being asked to tour with a band called Quintessence, and they were very, very popular in Britain. And so we went another mega tour with them. And the last gig that we ever played was actually at London's Royal Albert Hall. It's over 5,000 people were packed in there. It was a sold-out show. And we were supposed to go on tour again the following spring, which was a few weeks away. And Janet met somebody in the States when she went back there, and they ended up getting married. So the duo disbanded, basically.
That must have been tough. That must have been very difficult.
Yes, because I never really, and even to this day, I've never really had the same kind of rapport with another musician. I mean, I would, write part of a song, let's say the first half of a song, and then she would put her half on it, and it's pretty much what I heard in my head. That's the kind of connection that we had musically. It was amazing.
So was your career basically over at the time that she got married?
Well, she was the duo's lead singer. I actually started writing songs first, and I said, "Would you listen to this song?" This was in the beginning. And she said, "Okay." So I started playing and singing it, and she saw the lyric sheet next to me, and she picked it up and started belting out the song. I said, "Why don't you do lead and I'll take the harmony?" So to answer your question, when our duo officially disbanded, what I did was look at my strengths, and that was not necessarily the lead singer. So what I did was I wrote a whole bunch of instrumentals, and I was kind of ballsy, and I cold called them to a background station during, and they accepted 2 or 3 of my original songs, and they sent them out the next day to Hawaii to go on to Muzak, and they played worldwide for like 8 years.
So was that so looking back now and from where you are, because you're so you have such a I don't want to say a star quality, but you see starish in a way, and you seem like a flower child. And I'm wondering, and I don't know how to ask you this question, but I'm wondering if if you look back and you go and you have any sadness or an incompleteness of your music from your music career.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very upfront. I'm very sad that we never made an album of, Emily Muff originals. And I'm very sad and very angry, too, still, of the treatment that we came across, the very sexist treatment. And
would that have made a difference for her had the treatment been different?
Yes, because for Janet, you mean?
Uh-huh.
I think so, because we both had the same goals, pretty much. I mean, she didn't know she was going to meet somebody, and I respected that. So, but we both had the same goals. We were, close. Luckily, we didn't like the same guys. We didn't fight over them, so that was good.
That was good. But it's interesting though, because to be a duo or to be in a band. I mean, from what I know, because I obviously used to not obviously, but you can imagine I have hung out with a couple of bands before, and I have been a roadie before. I mean, that being in syncness is so important for the music. It's so important that you find that rhythm connection, that the pieces fit, and it seems like your pieces fit so well that, that it was great while it was great.
Yes. I agree. As I said, the connection was just otherworldly almost. And I'll give you an example. We were performing at a concert, and this is 2 examples, but one, we were performing at a concert, and in those days, you didn't have anything, ear pieces where you could hear things and get a feel of it. So in those days, your sound that you played on stage bounced back off the concert hall walls in the back and came back to the stage several seconds later. So it was very tough. And the first time we experienced that, we both stopped for a second. But like 1 second later, we were both in sync and we both picked up the song exactly where it needed to be. And that I consider because we were so close and so in sync with each other. And
we also do want to mention that Kathy has some hearing challenges because of being a Rocky, right?
Yes, absolutely. We toured a lot with family, and you can look them up online. They were very, very, very incredible progressive rock band, but they were loud. And we had every night on the tours, night after night, we had big Marshall stacks of amplifiers behind us. So I, eventually just lost some hearing. But I also went to a lot of concerts when I was growing up, too. It wasn't just something that just happened. I saw the Beatles at Shea Stadium. I went to several Rolling Stones concerts. And I could not hear very clearly for 2 days afterwards because of the screaming.
Well, but the music matters, right? Music matters. So Susan on our chat wants to know, Kathy, could you tell us about some of the other famous UK rockers you met?
Absolutely. I'll titillate everybody,
including me. Titillating everyone. Here you go.
Okay. So, there's a band called Traffic, who a lot of Americans know about, too. And so Dave Mason, who was very instrumental, pun intended, with Traffic, when Janet and I did an informal audition for Family close to when we first met them, Dave Mason was in the room. He was right in the room. So that was nice. We were on the same bill, let's put it that way, as Rod Stewart, Vandergraaf Generator, which was pretty hard band, and The Nice, The Move. I came across the Rolling Stones quite a few times. They actually asked my duo, we were recording for Friends, and they came into the studio we were in and asked if Janet and I would go into their studio. And that was probably one of the hardest decisions of our life. Who wouldn't want to go into a Stone session? But we had 2 more songs to record with our friends who were dear friends. So we turned down the Stones. So
Wow.
that kind of thing. But may I tell you one other thing that was wonderful?
Yeah.
I play blues harmonica. I play a mean harmonica. Derek, if you're listening, thank you so much for teaching me how to play a mean blues harp, because you're the only one who was able to really get me going on that. So thank you. Anyway, I was at a concert. We were opening for Family. It was in the London area. And you can't see too far out, into the audience because the stage is lit up and the crowd is not. But standing underneath the exit signs, there was a white sign and a red sign. I happened to see, and I looked to my right, and it was Mick Jagger and Keith Richards watching me play harmonica and my friend Janet play rhythm guitar, pretty hard guitar. And so I did not drop my harmonica, and I swiveled over a little more in their direction, and I played right to Mick and Keith. I mean, it was an incredible experience.
And Derek taught you way back.
He was in Britain that first summer I met him. And now we're friends again. We've connected up in Facebook, which is nice.
Cool. And Derek, if you're listening, you can call in and play a little harmonica for us. We'd love to have that if you can. So what made you so good? What made the Rolling Stones be interested in you?
Well, that's actually not the whole story. Even
okay,
for
tell
that.
me more then.
Okay, all right.
God knows I want the whole story.
All right. I didn't get it. At that same recording session for our friends, who were called Mighty Baby, we had just finished recording some vocals. Usually we didn't do a lot of backup vocals, but for our friends we would, definitely. So we were sitting, in these days, we were sitting cross-legged on the floor. It was hippie days of the studio, listening to the playback. And the engineer, who was, I believe, Glyn Johns, who was also an engineer for the Stones, I mean, big-time engineer in Britain, he had flicked the switch on the console board to the next, so we could hear the next studio next door. And you heard somebody say, those girls' voices sound like Crystal, don't they, Mick? So Glenn turned around and he looked at the two of us, Janet, and me, and said, oh, well, girls, it sounds like the Rolling Stones are, digging your voices. And a few minutes later, this young man came to our studio's doorway, and he went over. He went over and invited us, and we said no, sorry, And then 5 minutes later, Mick and Keith came to the door and looked at us and walked over to our friends, and they turned around and walked out, and they didn't say anything to us because nobody turns down the Stones.
Wow. So when you look back, is there anything you would change?
Well, I think, as I said, I would want a manager who was even more supportive, because he didn't believe us when we told him about the sleazy encounter with the record exec.
Maybe he didn't care.
It was very emotional.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what were the other women? What were the other groups in America? What was going on there?
Well, there was Fanny, who we had heard about in Britain. They had released their first album, I believe, in 1970. They were, and still apparently are. I read an article 2 nights ago that they're going to be touring again or whatever. But we saw their album cover, which was a picture of them since you're asking. I
Yeah.
wasn't going to mention it, but now I will say in answer to it, that their album cover had a picture of them, walking away from the camera, and it was showing basically their rear ends, almost like they were, not slapping their rear ends, but whatever. And when Janet and I saw that, we were disappointed because in actual fact, the people who we were with that day when everyone's passing the album cover around were making sleazy remarks. And so it didn't come across. They're saying it's a strength for them. That name was a girl power thing. But really what I saw was it was not received that way.
So fast forward to today.
Mm-hmm.
And all the things that have gone on as far as women, and last night was the Academy Awards and all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. What's your commentary about all this?
I feel very relieved that things are coming out because for over 40 years, people didn't believe me. Many people didn't believe what happened in the record company office. And in terms of just, they wouldn't give us the contract. It was, we love your music, but what will you do for me, girls? And licking his lips and stuff. And we both knew what it was what he meant. And people kept saying we had misinterpreted. So I am thrilled. I've just finished writing a screenplay, and I feel comfortable now writing about my experiences because there's been so many, many, many other women in the world who have had similar experiences in terms of just encountering that. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a time. Just us doing this is so timely to be able to talk to you about your experience because, it's hard when somebody is dangling, the golden nugget, this big carrot in front of you to say no and to say, no, I'm going to stick to what I want. I don't know if a lot of women do that. I'm sure a lot do, and I'm sure there's many that don't. Who, take that road because they want that big deal, and they want. It's no fault, but it does happen. And now people are standing up and talking about things, and things are coming out, and people are getting stronger. And you already were strong.
We were very strong in those days. We. When we first formed our duo, we had always been, once we got to Britain and we became friends with, the bands, people assumed we were groupies. They just assumed it in the beginning. And Janet and I discussed it amongst ourselves and just said, we wanted to make it clear that we were not groupies. So.
And it wasn't even just the intimacy and the sexual connotations, but you were ethical. You knew you were doing this work for this friend, and even though the Stones, and they were, you knew who they were back then, right? It wasn't just some
Absolutely.
other group. You knew it was the Stones.
I had met them before.
Oh my God, you turned the Stones down. Mm-hmm. Wow.
But there's more to the story.
Go ahead. Well, we want the I'll get Kathy.
I'm trying.
Stop holding back.
So when we had that second manager, and we were in a studio recording a demo for a different record company. We, we had other musicians come in because he was insistent that we have a fuller sound, even though Janet and I didn't feel we needed one. So we took a break, and this is after, that whole thing when we rejected them. We took a break and we walked out into the foyer of the studio, and who's in the foyer going up the steps to another studio were the Rolling Stones drummer Charlie Watts and Mick Jagger. And so Janet and I turned to each other and I said to her, "You want to crash the Rolling Stones recording session this time?" She said, "Yeah, but we don't know if they're going to let us in, because we turned them down." So we did. We went upstairs and we went in and we held our breath because we thought they had a bouncer sort of at the door, one of their employees, I guess. And he didn't really stop us, but we were like, ugh. And we went in and we pushed our way over amongst the groupies and girlfriends to the recording window and watched quite a bit, but we still had to get back to our studio session, the Stones. And it was incredible to watch a Rolling Stones recording session was a lifetime phenomenal experience. And so on the way out, we had to pass this guy again, at the door. And he said, "Well, Emily Muff, how are you girls? You doing okay?" We said, "Oh, you knew who we were?" "Of course I did. I wouldn't have let you in now, would I, if I didn't know who you were?" So he was with the Stones, and the Stones knew us. So,
And then what? So what happened? Any
well,
chance?
we went back. We went back
Okay.
to our. We had our own recording session to do, and our manager was PO'd because we were late because we were at the Stones session.
But nothing else with the Stones.
Well, if you want to back up, I met Keith Richards when I was 16. I said I was very courageous and kind of ballsy. And do you want to hear about that?
I want to hear everything.
Okay. So I was doing my algebra homework and I was 16 in New York City. And the DJ, I had my radio on when I wasn't supposed to. And so he said, "Well, there's a rumor." It was Murray the K, very famous.
Oh, I remember him.
Oh, Mary Kay and his swinging soiree. Brabe. Anyway, so he said, "Well, and it was like 10:15 at night or 10:30. He said, "There's a rumor that the Rolling Stones are going to be stopping by for drinks at the Phone Booth Club in Midtown Manhattan." And I'm like, phone booth? I'm writing it down next to a quadratic equation. And so I had my brother, that's all, my only sibling. He was older than me, but he was a Beatles fan. He liked the Stones, but so we used to have Beatles, and I love the Beatles too, but we used to have shouting matches about Beatles versus Stones. So I kind of had to ask him, and he agreed to take me, if our parents said yes. But he said I had to clean his room for a year. Later, he rescinded that. So we went and got a cab. Our parents said yes. We got a taxi. We went over and we went to the Phone Booth Club, and there was no one outside. Where are the groupies? Where are the crowds? So we went in, and they said, "Oh, a tie is required." So they kind of said goodbye to us, and we stepped outside, and it was freezing. It was in November, and I pulled a tie out of my purse because I had thought about it ahead of time. So my brother put a tie on, and we went back in, and I was 16 and underage, so I pretended I was his date, sort of, which he said he needed a barf bag for. But so we went in, and we went over to the bar, and my brother ordered drinks because I was pretty clueless, and he said, I need to go to the men's room. So he went to the men's room, and I turned to my right, and the guy standing that was empty, in the beginning, but he must have come up, when I was talking with my brother. And I thought it looked like Keith Richards, and I was pretty much a Keith Richards fanatic. And so I turned towards him, and I'm 16, and I said, "Are you Keith Richards?" And he turned towards me, and he said, "No, I'm not." So, of course, that slammed me in the solar plexus verbally. And I thought, I only have like 3 seconds to say something else to him. And so I turned to him again with my nose in the air, his chin up, and I said, "Well, I like Keith Richards' guitar solo on Heart of Stone. I think it's really, groovy and wonderful." And I waited, and he turned back to me, and he said, "Thanks, love." And then he looked like he was going to say something else, but my brother came up. But so that was my first.
So you
Keith
were
Richards.
meant to join. You were meant to connect with him, weren't you?
And then
On some level.
yes, and then I met him again in
Yeah.
Britain.
So are you self-taught?
No, I took classical piano. My parents, I took classical piano for 10 or 12 years at the Mannes College of Music, and I had to practice an hour a day, but my parents weren't home at the time, and neither was my brother, so I practiced for half an hour. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, Mom and Dad. And then I was writing songs, like when I was 11, I was writing songs on my dad's guitar and keyboards or piano.
Anything else? Any other creative bursts from you?
Well, my parents had also sent me to a dance company in New York City, the Paul Sanasardo, Danya Foyer Modern Dance Company. So they added children to their dance troupe professionally. So I was touring a little bit, with them just in New York, at the 92nd Street Y. We would
Wow.
perform there, and and really the dress rehearsals would last 16 hours, and we were young, we were 9, 10, and we were just expected to be there. So it was extremely professional. And then I was accepted at the High School of Performing Arts for dance. So I had a lot of stage experience, and so did my friend Janet. So it wasn't something like we just went to Britain, and decided, okay, let's, be a rock duo. We had performing experience. We'd both been writing songs since we were young, and,
So dance, modern dance, right? Is that what you said?
Yes, it was.
Modern
Well, I
dance.
took ballet lessons at Joffrey's.
Oh,
in New
wow,
York.
you really had it
was very strict.
Oh my God, you had an extraordinary background.
My
Didn't
parents
you?
were wonderful in that way.
That was great. That was great, and I'm sure it all came in handy as a rocker.
It did, because it helped with the poise. If I wanted to dance around a little bit, I could. Or yes, absolutely,
I mean, and also just performing in general.
absolutely. And Janet and I were very professional. We never were not professional. It's like we'd get out on stage, say hello or whatever. It's nice to be in Leicester tonight or Sheffield. And then we'd 1, 2, 3, 4, bam, And because also the other bands, we toured and we opened for Family and Yes. Yes was formed next door to us too.
What do you mean next door?
The Janet and I had been writing a few songs, and this musician, Tony Kay, moved in next door to us. And he thought we were groupies because we're women. People just assumed, So in the beginning, before we were really heavily touring. And he said, I'm, out of work and everything. So anyway, he said, one day soon after, he said, I have an audition today. And we were like, oh, Tony, wonderful, great. And so he came back that night. He said, well, I think they might. So the next day, it was pouring rain out, and there was a knock on our basement door. We had no kitchen, we're just an outdoor toilet. So I went to the door, and this bloke is standing there. He was dressed in green, and he said, is Tony home? And I opened the door, and he pushed past me like he thought I was Tony's groupie or whatever. So he was in with Tony for a while, and then this guy left. And Tony came running over to Janet and me, and knocked on our door, and comes rushing in, and he said, I made it. I'm going to be part of this band. They've accepted me. And we said, that's wonderful. What's the name of the band? And he said, well, there's a guy named John Anderson, and that was Chris Squire, and they're forming a band. And we said, what's the name of the band? And he said, Yes. And we said, well, you remember us when you're rich and famous? And he said, yes.
It was easier for a male band to become rich and famous than I guess it was for a female band back in those days, or almost any day.
Well, there really were not a lot of female bands, especially in Britain. There was Christine Perfect, who later married John McVie and became, Fleetwood Mac, and they're very instrumental, pun intended again.
Right.
And so she was one of the few women that Janet and I saw in those early days who played an instrument, wrote songs, and performed, and held her own in that blues scene.
Did you make money?
Yeah, it was interesting because it was a roller coaster, because some days we would hardly be paid anything, and other times we got paid a huge amount of money. So it just depended on the concert and if Family had gotten what they deserved too, that kind of thing. So it wasn't steady, though. So I'm going to drop a bombshell here.
Good. We're ready.
You ready?
You're
All
ready.
right. You've got your masks on and everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So finally, our manager, Tony, who I adored, till the thing happened with the record company and he didn't believe us. But Tony, I still love you. But anyway, so he, basically, where was I?
You're going to drop a bomb.
Yeah. I better remember what I was going to say.
Oh my God, how many bombs you got to drop?
Okay. So Tony said there's an issue with the Home Office who is after you because you're not making enough, hundreds of thousands of pounds per week to stay here as Americans, because we were. So we went to the lawyer and he said, girls, between the lines, I can't tell you what to do, but you're going to be deported. We had another tour coming up. He said, we're going to be deported if you don't have a marriage of convenience. Go find 2 guys and get married soon, because otherwise, you're going to probably be deported because, and we were devastated. And so he said the record company, same one that later we had that issue with, paid for it. It was a double wedding, quote unquote. I never even kissed the guy, and neither did Janet, because we weren't.
I
we
wanted
weren't
to know why they didn't marry each other. Glad you didn't hear that one.
I'm straight but not narrow, but we weren't lesbians.
So you were basically forced into marrying for convenience in order to keep your money and not be deported.
Absolutely. And it was devastating. That's what I'm saying. When you asked in the beginning of this interview, what was it like? And I said it was kind of up and down. There were, highs and lows. But I think that shows how determined Janet and I were. That's the epitome of it, really, in many ways, walking out on the stone.
I mean, so it's interesting because you walked out on the stones, not once, but maybe more than once. You had all these other, once you had all these other things going on, and the piece de resistance is you're made to get married to somebody British. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Were the men asked to do that too?
No. However, later I went back to to Britain and met with one of Mighty Baby and told him a little bit of my story, and he said, well, in actual fact, a lot of the guys, you don't know this, but a lot of the guys are asked for sexual favors too by record companies and managers and things. So we didn't know
they didn't talk about it.
They didn't. I didn't know, and I had been touring for 3 years.
I mean, why they don't want to talk about that?
But when we first went on stage, no one had seen 2 women toting Telecaster and Rickenbacker guitars or anything. So we were an anomaly, sort of, in Britain. And the guys used to, in the first gigs, they used to watch us sideways because they were trying to look up our skirts, because we were wearing mini skirts in those days, And so we started lowering our skirts a bit, like, hey, listen to our music. So it took quite a while to become known more and to be, accepted as bona fide musicians in the rock music scene.
Wow. So what does music mean to you, even to this day?
Music has always been my passion from a young age. My parents were wonderful in the sense that they exposed us to a lot of different types. We were listening as a young child, my brother and I were listening to Leadbelly, the Carter Family. We're listening to some of the big band music that my parents loved. And I started buying singles and, at a young age and going to concerts. I was in New York, so I could, I saw the Byrds. I saw Linda Ronstadt when she was with Stone Ponies. I saw the Mamas and Papas. It just,
it seems so much easier then too to be part of that scene in that way than it is today. I think, I don't know, maybe because I was younger too and I went to some of those concerts, but it just seemed easier. I think. Am I wrong?
Well, I think it was easier because we chose, to be in Britain and to stay and tour in Britain because Britain was such a smaller country. It wasn't the East Coast, West Coast, and Nashville and Chicago types of. It was much closer. You might run into people. People knew each other more. It was I loved being over there because also you could do the whole circuit up the M1 and then,
Are you still selling? I mean, so records and music, are you selling music now?
I'm not selling music now because the 8 years on Muzak, which I did get royalties for, ended, and the guy who was helping me and was my publisher at the time, he passed away at 35 of a heart attack, unfortunately. Very sad for him because we were friends. And then, of course, we never really recorded an Emily Muff song because we had issues with the record company. And so right now, as I mentioned, I'm writing a screenplay because I really see my story, and I think you can probably envision it too, as a movie in movie format. I did write it as a book in book format, and it wasn't as exciting. It wasn't, there.
So let me ask you something, because we were just coming off the Academy Awards, and it was interesting because last night I was listening to them talk about a documentary, something about this artist, Anna something or something. It won one of the Academy Awards. I can't even remember what it was called, but So do you see your movie as a documentary? What is it? What is the thing in your movie that makes it a thing?
Okay. First of all, it cannot be a documentary, just for the simple fact that we don't have enough photos of our, or music tidbits that are left. We have very few, and most of the sound little bits of songs that we do have didn't reflect what we were like in concert, which was pretty hard. We were playing bar chords and electric lead, and very, very rocky harmonica that was heavy, that type of thing. And so it was.
So you can't reproduce it.
I could never reproduce. Well, no, it can't be a documentary because documentaries all have tons of photos and footage.
Right.
And I didn't really want it as a documentary. What I see it closest to, if I have to say, would be something like Almost Famous in the sense, but my story is true, whereas, sorry, Cameron Crowe, I love Almost Famous. I'm just saying his story was based upon, Led Zeppelin sort of, and a coming of age of a young man, a reporter, et cetera. And ours, in my screenplay, which I actually love because everything is true and it takes you into what happened and you get swept up into it with these two young women and what they experienced. And at the end, it's just wonderful because I don't really want to give it away, but, one day we said we were at a concert and we were at somebody else's concert, the Incredible String Band, and we were at the Albert Hall. And after the concert, Janet and I were nudging each other, sort of, wow, wouldn't it be great to play a concert at the Albert Hall, a gig here? And that was our crowning finale. So it was a success story for us. And there were like 5,000 people who saw us that night.
I want to show some of the rest of the pictures too but it's so fascinating. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm kind of drooling in honor of you. Because so often we sit back and yes, you said you had some anger, and yes, all the frustrations are possible, but at the same time, you're joyful, I can hear appreciation, and I can hear that even though it might have only been a small amount of time, basically, there was so much to gain from it, and so much, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Tell me what I mean.
Well, I'm honored. I am honored by your appreciation and your the fact that I think you really read me and see me in terms of what we've done.
But that's a message for everybody. What's the message?
The message is live your dreams. We were the girls next door, girl next door, who went and lived their dreams and did not compromise themselves, which is extremely rare. The other thing I would say is to fledgling artists or people who want to do whatever they want to do. Doesn't have to be music. Expect the unexpected. We're playing a gig, for example, and the lights went out. We're in the middle of a song. And so it's like we were so professional that we didn't freak out, because some people might have run off the stage, but we didn't. Our roadies, well, they were really families, but they were ours too, came over with 2 acoustic guitars and shoved them in our hands, and we just kept going. We slung them over our shoulders, and we sang as loud as we could. And just for the rest of the song, then the lights went on. It wasn't totally dark because there were, emergency lights.
But things are going to happen.
And another time, and the audience rose to their feet and gave us a standing ovation because we kept going. Mm-hmm. And another time, luckily only a sound check, I went up and I touched my guitar and I touched the microphone and I got slammed back. You hear about people getting electrocuted. They do. I didn't, luckily, but I was slammed back several feet. So I like to say that I gave a very electrifying performance that evening, but it made me more cautious. But the thing is, expect the unexpected and rise above it.
Yeah, don't get stuck there. It's just testing how far you can go. I want to just real quick, let's go through some of those other pictures so we can see and feel and almost be there. So what is this one?
Well, it's amazing. Oh, this one. Okay. That one is actually, again, there's very few pictures of Janet and me. And this was one of the songs at the Albert Hall. We actually opened the show and then we closed the show to help close the show. So this is Janet on the left and me on the right.
Okay.
And we were required, it was a Christmas show, so we were required to wear long white dresses.
Next.
That one I just put up on Facebook because I wanted to give people an idea of, some of the ads that were out at the time, these original ads, and the fact that I had kept for, 50 years or whatever, 40 years, my performer's pass from the Albert Hall that night. And that means a lot to me. I still have that ticket stub, not ticket.
And just, what does it mean?
It means that I achieved one of the dreams. I mean, the people that played at the Albert Hall were like Cream,
right? And so yeah. That's another point. When you reach, it's hard to say. You reach the point where you did something, and you reach it, and you're grateful for it. It's not where you go, well, it was only once. Oh, well, it was only this. Or, well, it was only that. Or I only did it a little. Don't do that. You reach it. What a feat. What an accomplishment. And that's cool, right? That's great. Wow. Terrific.
I get that all the time. Yeah. Well, that was then, it's good memories, enjoy it, that kind of thing.
No, it's more than that.
And
it's more than that. Okay, what is this?
This is just it was in Melody Maker, was the basic newspaper music rag, as they say. And this just is a sample, which was an actual one when we were touring with family, and only that part of that tour. And it shows, what I like about it too, is that they put our name, right up there. And, and that it shows how close some of the gigs were and the distance that we went.
Cool. Well, you know what? This is a way we're showing you how you honor yourself wherever you are, and however long ago or wherever it was, yesterday, last year, 10 years ago. It's great to honor yourself and yes, I made it. And what is this one?
Okay, this is taken from, I have 2 websites. One is about Emily Muff, which I, put up. And so this is that same Albert Hall picture and the same thing. With the admissions pass to the Albert Hall. And then down at the next one, the bottom one here is also, an ad. But I wanted to mention it was a very special ad because you can also see who else was touring in those days. But we're listed, and it was the Marquee Club. And the Marquee Club is a very special club in Britain. And I think I heard that it's still going, which I wouldn't be surprised, that's for sure. Which is fabulous. It was small, but people like, bands like The Who debuted there. I mean, it was a huge, the Stones have played there. And it was a very, very big deal. And so Emily Muff did make our debut. May I add one thing?
Sure.
Okay, so a friend of ours, was going to take our guitars in for us, play roadie that night. And so we approached the backstage area, and there was a burly bouncer at the door. And Janet, we both approached him, and Janet said, we're opening for the band Family tonight. And he said, and I remember this clearly, you girls can open for the band when you get back to their house tonight, Love or Ducky or whatever. And he wouldn't let us in. And that's a classic example in the beginning of what we went through.
You're beautiful in that picture.
Which picture? Oh, the one back.
Yeah, this next one is beautiful. I mean, they're.
Well, this is about last December. I got an email from Cherry Red Records. There's my accent of it. It still exists. And Grapefruit, which is a division of it. And they had emailed me saying, please, would you give us a track, an original Emily Muff track for this 3 CD compilation. And I actually brought it with me to show you,
It's.
And they have he said, and I said, I'll try. And my son, who's very savvy and somewhat of an engineer, definitely, and things like that. So we had saved some of the tracks. So there was a little bit of a harder track, but we only had more of a sample of it, and they wanted a whole track. So it's kind of one we did, Janet and I recorded actually in Woodstock after we came back to the States. So I consider it an outtake, and there's some flute mistakes that I made, but it still gives an idea. And I'm very honored because there's people on this CD like Linda Ronstadt, Joan Baez, I mean, it just goes on and on.
What a career. What a wonderful life, and what a career. And there's still more to share, I know. And I just want, I have one little quick question because we're almost out of time. Just say, did you do any TV?
Yes, we did.
And?
We were in Wales because we rehearsed there. We were on the Mike Stevens, I think it was Christmas special or TV show, playing one of our first songs. And then we were also, we did some backing for Family at the BBC in London. And it was the same show that I believe that featured the Beatles' Rooftop. That was the same show as what I heard. So, whoa. But so I contacted both BBC branches and I said, do you have the film for that? Thinking maybe documentary. And they said, in those days, we just erased things, except for the big, the Rooftop and all of that. But so the TV shows were erased.
You know what? All this stuff just, and I know everyone out there, you have wonderful, dreams, you have stories from your past, and if not, make them, because keep going forward and keep making those dreams happen. And Kathy's a wonderful example of that. So we're almost out of time. Before you do, can you show me that ad, please? One time. Here we go. This is a company I love to talk about. Just when it's great, I do all my email marketing with them. It's great. They handhold you. And it's wonderful. So please contact code Breaking Free, and you will get something special. Do that. And my book on Amazon, In Just One Afternoon, Listening to the Hearts of Men, because I love hearing people's stories and I loved listening to the men. And I am about to finish my next book, which is In Just One Afternoon, Listening to the Hearts of Twins. And I cried yesterday because of one of the stories. And I'll tell you what. I've been crying through them. And if I'm crying, then they got to be good, because I'm not going to cry through my stories. Okay. Final word.
My final word is just, I think we've had guests on other shows saying similar things, and that is keep going. I want to add, my parents were absolutely against me doing this. They never came to Britain. I love my parents. They're passed away now. And Janet's parents were very supportive. But that was a double whammy for me, believe me. And I just kept going, and I kept going. And
you have some guiding star.
And I'm going to keep going too, because I want to become now even more of a motivational speaker and help motivate people to live their dreams. And I want my screenplay made into a movie to share with people to see firsthand.
So is there anything else our audience can do for you?
For me?
Anything. Can they go to your website?
Oh,
Anything
absolutely,
would you
of
like
course.
them to do?
I would love for them to go to both of my websites if they'd like, the www.first, F-I-R-S-T, femalerockduo.com. And then my name is Kathy Bushnell. So I put, it's with a K, Kathy, K-A-T-H-Y, Bushnell, BUSHNELL.com. And I put the Kathy Bushnell one up because people said, what are you doing today, sort of. So I do have arthritis in one of my hands a bit, so it makes guitar playing a little harder, but I am in the middle of writing an instrumental where I am going to soar on lead guitar again, come hell or high water. And so, because I'm, a rocker at heart still. And people who saw us know that we were, it's not just the surviving snippets of music.
Once a rocker, always a rocker. Once a musician, always a musician. I want to thank you for being here.
I want to thank you for having me. I'm very, very honored.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us today. It was an honor to have you here as well, and for you to be listening to the story just like I am. And you're going to walk away, I know, just like I am. Mwah. Bye, everybody.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.